Okay, this is piece 213, Nan Madol, and the particulars of it are in these two images, we see the island of Pohnpei, Micronesia. It was created by the Saudelaire dynasty from about 700 to 1600. So what we're looking at here are ruins from that dynasty. Actually, it's from its capital city. It's made of basalt boulders and prismatic columns, which are similar to what we see around Spokane. There's lots of basalt columns. The piece, Nan Madol, is from Pacific Island Art. Pacific Island Art makes up 4% of the AP exam. It will not be featured in essay questions, but it will be in 4% of the multiple choice questions. It has 11 pieces, 3 from Micronesia, 3 from Melanesia, and 5 from Polynesia. All of these regions in the Pacific Ocean. So the context for this piece is Pohnpei Island is right here in this purple star in Micronesia. So Micronesia is first, it's a region of the Pacific Ocean, but it's also a nation titled the Federated States of Micronesia. And so there are about 607 islands that make up the Federated States of Micronesia. FSM is what it's kind of sometimes abbreviated as. And Pohnpei is an island in that nation. So here is the island of Pohnpei, and the little red dot here is where the former capital city of Saudelaire dynasty existed. And so this is what we're going to be looking at. The island is inhabited today. There are about 30,000 people that live there. To get to this, to see these ruins, is kind of a remote trek, though. The context for this also is that the kind of the origin story that has been handed down about this is that the Saudelaire dynasty, when it began, in order to create this incredible city, it had two brothers, Olishapa and Olosapa. They were brothers that built the city with the help of a flying dragon. These basalt pieces weigh up to 50 tons, and they were brought to this little spot from 25 miles away. So the curiosity is about how did this really happen? Um, so the math works out to over a period of 400 years, 1,850 tons of basalt were moved per year by the members of the Saudelaire dynasty. So here is a close-up look at what these basalt columns, prismatic columns look like. And this is the island of Pohnpei. And you can see right over here, this Soaks Island right here. That's where the basalt came from. And it had to go 25 miles over to here where Nan Madol exists. Pretty difficult trek. And so not only is Nan Madol made up of these basalt columns, but it's also built atop these coral reefs. And so the coral kind of makes the floor of these buildings. So here's a look at what the buildings would have looked like, or the whole city would have looked like in its heyday. It's considered the Venice of the Pacific. Venice, Italy, where canals are used to get around in the city. That's what would have been done at this point too. Also reminds me of Tenochtitlan for that reason. And this is an aerial view of kind of the remnants of Nan Madol. And you can see out here this coral reef, and in here the canals. Okay, so the function of this is that it was a city for 1,000 at the most inhabitants, perhaps from 500 to 1,000, and so it served as the religious and political center for the Saudelaire dynasty. So there would have been ceremonial events, religious functions that would have happened to to honor their gods and to keep the dynasty functioning. This is a view here. It's not a part of our set, but you can see the height of the wall that was created out of these basalt columns and remnants here of a building. Okay, so content here. These orange squares, this design shows us the extensiveness of the city of Nan Madol. So 100 buildings would have made up inside this coral reef. So they're built on this coral reef. They're built on top of little tiny islets, little islands, and they would have had inside these buildings. We know some of them would have had like eels existing in little ponds. They would have a building that was used to make canoes. They had a building that where coconut oil was prepared that would have been used in ceremonies. So lots of uses for these buildings and 100 of them. Further content, archaeologists have found lots of things like necklaces, arm rings, food, and then this is a picture of a plant called the kava plant, and this was a bit of a narcotic that would have been served to the wealthy folks that, or the higher mucky mucks that lived here. Commoners would have been responsible for bringing food, for bringing items to the folks that lived here. Okay, further content here you can see here is the ocean, and we have these huge seawalls that would have been built up that would have protected Nan Madol from all of the ocean water and storms. And then in terms of form, amazing building design here, this pattern of the basalt logs, if you will, laid perpendicular to one another. Okay, and basalt, when you apply enough force, can be broken off, and so that's why these columns can be pretty similar sized, pretty uniform. And then final content here is that we think this is a tomb of one of the leaders, and that the Saudalair dynasty was invaded by a war hero who overturned the Saudalair dynasty, and Isokelkel is that hero. This area is kind of untenable when you have to have people bring you food and kind of take care of you because you don't have crops growing right there. It makes it a difficult place to maintain, to sustain a life there. So this was abandoned in the early 1600s. All right, that's Nan Madol from Pohnpei, Micronesia, and from the Saudalair dynasty, made up of basalt boulders and columns.